Did you see that SpaceX thing yesterday?
No, I just heard it blew up.
Oh, man. So, look, it goes up in the air 18 kilometers or 12 kilometers or something like high. And then it gets to the point where it's at the top and it flips over, like just whoop, real fast, like a roller coaster kind of like I'm trying to think about what amusement park ride it would be. But it is one that I probably would not get on at age 45.
Can I just take it for granted that this was an unplanned maneuver?
No, this was intentional. This is how it's supposed to work.
Weird.
Because it goes up and then it like gets down and kind of like fat side down with the little winglets sticking out the side so it can kind of steer and keep the upside up and the downside down.
This is one of the SpaceX vehicles?
This is the big, big chonk, whatever
I did not
Mars.
keep up. I did not keep up with the news. This is one of the reusable ones? Like
This is a test bed for like the thing that is going to do a non-orbital around the world in like 90 minutes or halfway, like from here to Hong Kong in like 75 minutes or something.
Wait, so like a ramjet?
No, it's a rocket. Like you get on the rocket, it takes off, it goes up.
A literal rocket?
A literal rocket.
Jeez.
Yeah. Also, this is, I think, the thing that's going to go to Mars. I don't know. It's unclear. There's so much.
Well, it sounds like it's not going anywhere as of yet. Well,
so the parts that were important got tested and apparently worked. Like they were all like they were stoked. It seemed like, even though it blew up.
The rest is fungible.
Yeah, like the thing is, they crashed 4 or 5 of the regular Falcons before they got one that landed on the pad.
Yeah,
and all that while the old fogies were like, "This is impossible. It's never." I mean, my parents were staying in Florida regularly when they were doing that, and like all the old retired rocket engineers who lived around Cocoa Beach were like, this Musk guy's never going to work. And then immediately became like Tesla driving Musk fanboys the moment they landed rockets on the pad 50 style. So who knows?
Oh, great.
Politics of Elon Musk aside, it was a cool video to watch. And but the flip, the thing that when it's wanging down and then just spins down and the jets fire full blast.
Sorry, did you say when it's wanging down?
It was falling like a stone with wings. And then about, I don't know, it looked like maybe 1,000 feet off the ground. It goes rockets down, and the rockets, well, they didn't fire the way they were supposed to, obviously, because it exploded. But had they fired the right way, then they would have theoretically, landed on the pad vertically again.
Just made a gentle descent onto the pad. Wow, that sounds very graceful when you describe it.
No, it's too fast. No, I don't want to be inside that thing. You'd have to have your head you'd have to have your head braced so you don't get horrific whiplash from the wanging of the spaceship. Didn't seem great.
Yeah. Have you ever read up on the whole scramjet thing?
Yeah.
Of course you of all people are familiar with that stuff.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
I think I will never get over the fact that stuff works and worked in practice, and they only declined to put it into commercial use because of the noise. Because it annoyed people.
Also, there was that's why the Concorde didn't end up becoming a thing too, right? Is like in order for it to take off, it made so much noise.
Yes, the sonic booms were just intolerable to too many people. We could do New York to LA in 90 minutes or something.
Less than that.
Whatever it was.
It's let's see, the SR-71's the record time is like 34 minutes or something from New York to DC, from DC to LA.
Could have it so good.
If
only people didn't mind their windows shattering every so often.
Look, you got to make an omelet, eggs, yada, yada. I don't know. I always read about and saw videos of Concorde flights and stuff like that, because that seemed like a thing that really, really, those tickets were phenomenally expensive, even by intercontinental first class prices, right? 10 grand a seat or something.
I believe that's the case. I hope I'm not conflating the Concorde with the ramjet stuff too much. Am I?
Well, so my understanding is that the problem with the ramjets is twofold. One is that they're really loud. They are burning fuel. They're environmental nightmares because they burn fuel in an area where there's no exhaust normally and no way for that stuff to get there. But also the material science to make them safe and reusable was pretty substantial and maybe beyond what we could do.
We got the ballpoint pen out of the space program.
No.
Did I get that wrong too?
Space pen. You're thinking about the pressurized ballpoint pen.
Oh.
Yeah, we had ballpoint pens before that. They didn't work because they need gravity.
Okay. Well, there's always a better ballpoint pen to achieve.
Do you even use? I use gel pens now.
I don't even know what that is.
All about that gel, baby.
Who writes? I don't know what handwriting is anymore.
Look, I have a 8-year-old. I keep disposable. I feel bad because I keep those disposable orange plastic Bic mechanical pencils. And then I also use really kind of fancy disposable, like Uniball gel 0.38.
Disposable, huh?
Yeah, I know.
Sounds perfect for this episode.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad. I did the thing that I always tell myself I'm not going to do and talked about the actual episode in the cold open.
Oh, that was good. That was a nice segue.
There's too much continuity.
That was smooth because the music played right after you did that. It sounded really cool, I'm sure.
I think that thing's supposed to be like its own mini 3-minute podcast. Entirely self-contained.
We should just, think of how many more podcasts we could have if we just did 3-minute podcasts.
Whoa. Don't say that out loud, man.
And we have 2 days to get the first one up. We could be like Quibi, but for podcasts.
You gotta get the U.S. Patent and Trade Office on the phone.
No, let's just start jamming out. Let's see how many. Didn't they do that? Was a Reply All episode.
Help me out here. Okay, we got to come up with a pithy name before anything else. It's like the microcast is too obvious.
No, it needs to be just gibberish. Miccasts.
It's like name it after a bird, right? That seems to work well.
Well, we could call it Mike Casts.
Call it a finch.
All the hosts have to be named Mike.
Our 3-minute podcast is a finch.
Yeah. Okay. I'm in. Finch cast. Finch.
Oh, no cast. Just a finch.
No cast. Oh,
it doesn't need to make sense.
What is the mandragine? What's the portmanteau short for? Is it like financial? Chimpanzees.
Yes. You've already put too much thought into it.
This is really good.
Yeah.
We can get out of this hellhole. Wait, we don't have a hellhole here, but it's like theoretically.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to cover this topic in 3 minutes.
No, this is a bigger topic than 3 minutes.
Yes.
And it all starts with Malcolm Gladwell at TED in like 2003 or 2004. See, I did an NPR intro there.
Okay. I thought you were going to say it all starts with Cheetos, but we'll get there.
No. So he did, and this showed up in one of his books later. Maybe this was probably the TED Talk that promoted the book. But he talked about spaghetti sauce.
Okay.
And bliss points. Bliss point is, I think bliss point is probably the overarching idea here.
That is the one kind of buzzword or concept from this topic that had made its way. It had so permeated the kind of mass consciousness that I had heard of it.
So in the 50s and 60s, American food manufacturers, factory manufacturer processed and prepared foods started to become a thing for the first time ever, really. And one of the categories they had a hard time cracking into was spaghetti sauce, which, like already most of the ingredients for spaghetti sauce were canned and on shelves. So why could you not get canned spaghetti sauce? But they did a bunch of data analysis and they basically made a bunch of spaghetti sauce and fed it to a bunch of people and then took the things that people liked about the different sauces, the sweetness, the spiciness, the texture, the smoothness, the lack of chunks, the amount of like green flecks in the sauce to make it look like there's actual spices in there. And they averaged them all together and ragu was born.
Okay.
So after that and such was life for like 30 years, right? Ragu was the one you bought on shelves, and there was some variants. There was like ragu with like a little bit of mushroom flavor, or ragu with a little spicier, ragu with a little sweeter, or whatever.
And this is still the 60s,
60s, 70s into the early 80s.
Okay.
In the early 80s, this company called Prego went to a guy named Howard Moskowitz and was like, "Hey,
dude, Howard Moskowitz, holy crap!"
Yeah.
Yeah,
food science gene like legend, right?
Yes. Hard to know whether to call him more of a visionary or a villain.
Look, as with any good story, sometimes the hero and the villain are the same person. So, yes. Prego was like, "Hey, we're getting our ass kicked by these bland ass ragu motherfuckers. What do we do to bring spaghetti sauce into the 80s?" Right. And he was like, look, here's the deal. 30%, he did the data analysis. He cross country, when they do this, when they're searching for the bliss point, they make bazillions of combinations, like hundreds of combinations with all the variables shifted. And then they test them on thousands upon thousands of people in different regions, different ethnic backgrounds, different ages, all of this stuff. And Howard told Prego, 30% of people like chunky spaghetti sauce. And they went and looked at the grocery store shelves and there was no chunky spaghetti sauce. So Prego jammed out some chunky spaghetti sauce and instantly captured 30% of the market because lots of people like tomato and mushroom chunks in there and meat chunks in their sauce.
And at the time, they apparently were not being served at all by any major consumer brand.
The averaging completely failed to serve. And in a lot of ways, this is the moment that like late stage capitalism in the grocery store started.
Yeah.
Right?
So we'll put the link to this in the show notes, but you had me read, and this is all laid out in a very detailed fashion in what probably is, I have to assume, is considered like a landmark piece, right? From 2015 in the New York Times Magazine by Michael Moss called The Extraordinary Science of Addictive Junk Food.
It was a huge article in that it was the first time for different reasons. It actually, this is part of a book called Sugar, Salt, Fat, How the Food Giants Hooked Us, which Michael Moss wrote, I believe.
Okay.
And this article is adapted from that.
I see.
And it's basically about how, in the same way that like the tobacco companies knew that smoking was bad for us and continued to push cigarettes and minimize the reporting of health impacts. And the oil companies knew that global warming was a real problem since the 70s, but have been actively working to suppress concern about that. It turns out that the big packaged food goods companies like General Mills and Kraft and Coca-Cola and all of those companies have been doing the same thing for about the same amount of time.
Dude, this is an amazing article, but I think I told you this as I was reading it. The more you read it, the more sinister it feels.
This is not an article that will make you feel good about anything.
It opens with this amazing anecdote about this 1999 like clandestine meeting where the creatives of the processed food industry feeling, they were feeling some compunction about the way they were contributing to the obesity epidemic, gathered all of the executives of the processed food industry to like formally express their concerns and how their companies could actually help become part of the solution.
Yeah.
And the head of General Mills, the biggest of those companies, was like, no.
He basically shot the finger and walked out.
Yes. He basically was stopped. Like, if we make our food taste less good, then less people are going to buy it. So F off.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this article for 10 years now, almost, right? Since I first read it. Yes. It haunts me every time I sit in the grocery store and I look at the Oreos aisle and I see 55 different kinds of Oreos from like, I don't know, chocolate chunk to Pop Rocks flavored Oreos. I cringe and I think about what we're doing to ourselves. But I also have been thinking about how it applies to technology. But before we get to technology, I want to talk about Cheetos. Yeah. Because in a lot of ways, as a guy named Stephen Witherly, who wrote a book called Why Humans Like Junk Food, and said, he said it better than I can. He said he ate a Cheetos puff and he said, this is one of the most marvelously constructed foods on the planet in terms of pure pleasure. And the Cheeto is a result of a ton of research of this kind of seeking the bliss point, in that the Cheeto is the perfect bliss point food. Yeah. It has crunch, the mouth texture and mouthfeel of it through the entire eating process is delightful, right? Yeah. You want to have more of them in your mouth. The cheesiness is exactly right. The powder kind of distributes the flavor all throughout your entire mouth. So all of your taste buds and your nose is all engaged. And this is a really important one. As you eat it, as it sits in your mouth, it kind of just dissolves to nothing, which sends a signal to your brain, an unconscious signal to your brain that, hey, this food is devoid of calories, so you can keep eating it.
Wow.
So you eat it, you're completely unsatisfied no matter how many Cheetos you eat, and you always want more of them. If you want to sell a shitload of Cheetos to people, what does better than Cheetos, right? What does better than that? So you have no brain signal to tell you to stop eating or anything like that. And the thing that happened in the 80s with Cheetos, and there's a whole other article about the guy who was like, hey, look, we're not serving the Latino market with any of our Frito-Lay products at all. He's now in charge of he was in charge of Frito-Lay as of the last time I looked at who was the CEO of Frito-Lay, but he basically said, look, we should just make Cheetos, but spicy. And thus were born the 8 different gradations of from flaming hot up to like, we only sell this in the extreme Southwest, like really, really insanely ghost pepper hot kind of Cheetos. Yeah. And like, part of me loves this. I love a Cheeto. Like, who doesn't love a Cheeto, right? Cheetos rip. Of course. Cheetos are really good.
Yes, they are.
But like the engineering to get to that bliss point and then expanding the product line out to fill as many niches as possible and grab as much as you can is a really good example of what I kind of think of as the Cheetosification of technology.
So that engineering is where the kind of vision or villainy of Moskowitz comes in, because it seems like his great innovation to bring all this was like statistical analysis of all those elements of like flavor and mouthfeel and stuff like that, right? Like I guess, he's a mathematician, like PhD in psychology or something like that. And like was an army researcher.
Yeah, they looked for bliss point in some sort of army research, right?
So, yeah, it was interesting. Like it came out of apparently like soldiers not getting enough calories in the field because the MREs were so bland and unpalatable, right? Like they didn't want to eat enough because the food was terrible.
I mean, you've seen Vinny eat a World War II C4 ration, right?
I've eaten an MRE before. I mean,
but MREs are different. MREs are pretty good. The ones from World War II were horrifying.
Oh, sure, of course, yes. But yeah, he brought that process and that sensibility to kind of consumer packaged goods, and they quote him pretty extensively in this thing. And he comes off as kind of like an amoral figure in this whole thing. Like there is some full on like, hey, I was struggling to survive financially. I don't have any qualms about my contribution to this process.
I fully believe that in 1950, when they were inventing Cheetos, nobody realized that loading all the food with sugar and salt was going to have long-term implications on the health of our nation, to the point that like one of the reasons we have a higher fatality rate in the US because of coronavirus is because everybody's obese and has heart disease. Yeah, right.
I mean, yes, of course.
But I mean, there definitely was a moment in the as painted in this meeting with General Mills and the people who designed the food, the business people and the food designers, where it was really clear that a lot of the nation of snackers that we've become was having an impact on overall obesity. And there's a big difference. It's easy to say, hey, you shouldn't eat Cheetos because they'll make you fat. But there's a difference when Cheetos are engineered to make it difficult for you to stop eating them. And like, one of the things that happens when you know this is that all of a sudden you know that Cheetos are engineered to make you be able to stop eating them, and you can eat like 5 Cheetos because this information is powerful, right?
Absolutely. Like there is, and again, it's both interesting and alarming. There's a look inside specific aspects of this process, like specific cognitive stuff in this article. It's super eye-opening. Like there's that concept of sensory specific satiety in here, which is described, I'm just quote the article in lay terms. It's the tendency for big distinct flavors to overwhelm the brain, which responds by depressing your desire to have more. The biggest hits, be they Coca-Cola or Doritos, owe their success to complex formulas that pique the taste buds enough to be alluring, but don't have a distinct overriding single flavor that tells the brain to stop eating. Yeah. Like they know exactly what they're doing with this stuff. They like mathematically, they talk about the process in here. They mathematically plot out how far is far enough without going too far. It's both a cost saving measure in terms of ingredients and also psychological manipulation in like giving you enough of what you want without giving you so much that you don't want more.
Well, it's kind of
chilling.
It all games the evolutionary biology of like flavor and taste, right? Yeah. And like one of the things you learn when you have a kid is that when kids turn 2 or 3, they start rejecting things that are sour or bitter, because those flavors in the wild usually indicate, or your ability to detect those flavors in the wild usually indicates something that is either spoiled for sour or poisonous for bitter. And so we use those flavors in food because they're interesting, but it takes us reaching an age when we're able to overwhelm our biological instincts to not eat the spoiled thing and not eat the poisonous thing. Anyway, how does this apply to tech, you may ask?
Yes.
Well, we were talking about soundbars the other day.
We were.
And I was looking at the 5.1 speaker system in my living room, and you were looking at the 2.1 or 3.1 in your living room.
It's just 2 floor speakers. I don't even have a 0.1. It's literally just 2, but they are very like quite nice, 4 foot tall standing floor speakers. Like they're equivalent to my Klipsch's, but probably I think they're better because you have the ones that one of the companies they gobbled up, right? But they are the old kind of speakers that actually take up floor space,
Yeah. Well, and we were talking to a mutual friend who has a speaker setup that I can only describe as ridiculous and awe-inspiring.
It is immense and looks like something out of time. Like it could be from the 50s. It could be from the 1950s or the 2050s. I really don't know where to place those speakers. They are wild looking.
They were like 9 feet tall. It looked like they looked almost right up to the ceiling and are like triangular and amazing and gorgeous.
Like they made a 77-inch screen that he had just gotten and mounted on the wall look small.
Yeah. So I was looking at that and we were having this conversation. I was like, oh, fuck. They've done the Cheetos thing to us here. Because what has happened... the 5.1 speaker stuff started getting popular in the mid 90s when DVD took off.
Yeah, that's
because all of a sudden we had like a media format that could deliver 5.1 sound. We had consoles starting with the original Xbox that could do 5.1 sound. And all of a sudden, like the weirdos at the edges of the hobby were buying these really annoying, complicated 5.1 speaker setups that had like wires everywhere and subwoofers everywhere. And then the audio companies over the last 20 years have been slowly refining that product line to make it less appealing or as appealing to more normal people at each step along the way. So like, we went to wireless subwoofers and so you just plug it into power and it connects to the speakers. We had like home kit systems where you could buy one box that had all the speakers and the receiver and everything you needed.
Yeah, I think it was a home theater in a box was an actual brand at one point. I think
those were actual. I think it was a category, maybe more than a brand. I don't remember.
Yes.
But like Iowa and even Sony and the big companies would get on that. And like when you think about it, that's interesting for consumers, for people who are buying stuff, but it's also really interesting for Sony because like with my setup, I bought a Sony receiver and then I gave a bunch of money to Klipsch for some speakers. Whereas the home theater in a box, you just give Sony a whole buttload of money and they get all the
money. Yes, totally.
Yeah. So the where this is going, where I'm going with this after 30 minutes of podcast is the soundbar is the perfect distillation. It's the perfect Cheetosification of a tech category.
The soundbar is the Cheeto of the home theater world.
I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is.
That's make your argument.
Well, so my dad got a new TV on Black Friday and he was like, hey, the speakers in this thing suck. I was like, oh, that's weird. I haven't listened to a TV speaker in 20 years. I have no idea what they sound like now. He's like, your mom can't hear it. She has really good hearing. So he's like, I got a soundbar. I went back to the store and got a soundbar after I got this TV. I was like, first, don't go to the store because just don't go to stores right now. He's like, well, I had to go to the store because anyway. The soundbar gives you enough of the benefit of the 5.1 system. It's the plain Cheeto. It's not the puff. Mm-hmm. It's not the flaming hot. It's not the lime. It's not any of the other white cheddar Cheetos. It's not the no trans fat baked Cheetos. It's just the plain Cheeto.
Nor especially is it the artisanal aged cheddar that the Cheeto was like somehow derived from over thousands of iterations. You know what I mean?
No,
like
it's
on the same family tree as that cheese, but it is completely distinct from it.
It is the most bog standard Cheeto. It's the lowest common denominator of good sound for a TV that you can get. And it's in one box.
I feel like I have to jump in here real fast and just admit that we're probably going to come off sounding kind of elitist through parts of this.
I think this is about thinking about how things are made and sold more than being elitist.
That's fair.
I have no beef with soundbars.
No, I don't either. Like I'm not here. Well, let me put it this way. I'm not at all here to knock people who want to get a soundbar. Like the benefits are obvious. The only part where this breaks down is where the previous markets start to erode and then disappear because something like the soundbar dominates so much that suddenly you can't get the bigger, more elaborate thing anymore because nobody's making
that happened with phones too. Where's your Danger hip top, right? Those are all gone because the iPhone took off. Where's your RIM BlackBerry?
Well, I'm not sure that I don't know that I would equate a BlackBerry with a nice 5.1 system, but you know.
I mean, the BlackBerry was a niche product for a very niche market at a time when a competitor didn't exist. And then when a mainstream mass market product like the iPhone and Android phones came along, it completely ate their lunch because it was, they couldn't compete.
Well, the difference here is I would say, like, if you're a weirdo audiophile, there are advantages to like multiple discrete big speakers that you're not going to get from a sound. Like soundbar is a good example of good enough design, like it's good enough for 99% of people.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I would probably argue that the iPhone is in the same category. Like if you all you do use your phone for is email, I think 15 years of predictive keyboards have convinced me that a physical keyboard is probably better for typing emails than a predictive keyboard.
Sure.
Ducking.
Right? You're right. Yes.
Yeah. So, but the trade-off is that you get a much more functional multi-purpose device with a bigger screen that's like nice for watching video and playing games or whatever in exchange for not having that big stupid keyboard.
Sure.
And the soundbar is the same. The soundbar is exactly the same. You said it. Like, it's good enough. It makes the TV sound better. It hooks on the bottom. The companies love it because it's one box that they sell you, and they get all of the money from that.
Yeah, consumers love it because it's a one-stop solution. It's it's an item as opposed to like 5 speakers and a receiver and a bunch of cables. And it's just one thing that you buy, and it's fine. Well, and you just hook it up and you go.
And because they attach directly to the TV in most cases, every time you buy a new TV, in the old days, you upgraded your receiver and your speakers every 10 or 20 years, probably. Oh, now you upgrade them every time you get a new TV.
That is how that goes now, isn't it? So I have been not only do I have old fashioned speakers, but they're 12 years old. Like that tells you how much I keep up with soundbar tech, but like that is totally how it goes now, right? Like the TV manufacturer also makes an accompanying soundbar that fits on the unit.
It changes at different price points. Like if you're buying a Vizio TV, you buy the Vizio soundbar and it clamps onto the bottom.
I see. Yeah.
If you're buying Sonos makes really nice soundbars.
Yeah, you can still get like a nice standalone Sonos that doesn't have to bolt onto the TV. But what I mean is that option is there, right? That it's basically a package deal where you get TV and soundbar from the same company, right?
Well, and all the TV people had to do is make the speakers in the TVs so shitty that even people with good hearing wouldn't be able to hear the TV if you didn't spend $300 extra on this. I mean, this is why you can buy a $400 55-inch TV that's pretty good. It's because they sell your data to advertisers, and you buy another $250 TV speaker that hooks onto the bottom of the thing.
Yeah.
Audio, it's all the examples. I'm curious. Okay, so now that we've established this idea, I hope it makes sense in some way, shape, or form to the listeners, and not just you who've been talking about this for a while. It feels like this happens a lot in audio spaces.
Yeah, I could see it.
Headphones.
Sure.
We can talk about the AirPod Max, which is, I think, a profoundly ridiculous product.
Yeah. Well, sticking with the soundbar example for a minute before we move on, like there's a direct comparison to that statistical analysis that was going on in food that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Which is there's a part of that article where they talk about some work that the Moskowitz's consulting firm did for Dr. Pepper, where they talk about optimizing the ingredients to save the company money by plotting it's not a bliss point, it's more of a bliss range. And it's like you can achieve the same efficacy with,
it's like everything under this curve is good enough.
Totally. Let me just pull up
statistically okay.
The number that came up with. Instead of using 2 milliliters of Dr. Pepper syrup flavoring, for instance, they could use 1.69 milliliters and achieve the same effect.
Nice.
And they go on to mention, like that's millions in savings to a company like Dr. Pepper and manufacturing costs and blah, blah, blah. But like, it's kind of similar with soundbars, right? Of like, you can reduce the size of the woofers and tweeters by X%, and 99% of people are not going to care about the change in sound quality, right?
Or you can put in a DAC that has a little bit of smarts that cost you an extra 30 cents, per unit, that then lets you manipulate the sound, programmatically with math, rather than having additional speakers in, which would cost a lot more money to add and design and all that.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when you start looking at this stuff, the thing about this is, like, you start looking at it and it applies to everything. It applies to games and movies. It applies to how everything is marketed to you. TV shows. TV shows are the great example right now, because with Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, NBC, Warner Brothers, Disney, is that it? I feel like there's a few more that I'm forgetting
that are doing like streaming services.
All these companies fighting for your time. Like assume ESPN gets sports.
NBC's got a streaming service on the way, or maybe it already came out.
It's out. Peacock.
Peacock. Did that happen?
Yes. Somebody signed up for it with my email address. It's been great. I get all sorts of notifications.
Interesting.
Presumably also I have a free Peacock account. I don't know. I'm going to forgot my password on that and find out later. But so these companies are spending billions and billions of dollars on new TV shows, and like they're drilling ever deeper into these niches, into the Prego chunky spaghetti sauce niches,
right?
To get like, Umbrella Academy is superheroes, but they're a little gothy, and there's some supernatural and family drama and whatever else. The Boys is superheroes, but the superheroes are the bad guys, and it's really violent, and it has what's his name? Bones.
Carl Urban.
Yeah, exactly. Carl Urban. And
I didn't know he was in that. I didn't know he was in that. I need to watch that.
Oh, dude, that show is fantastic. It's you'll feel bad for liking it. It's so good.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like I'll also just feel bad.
But anyway, and then there's 25 different superhero shows right now, and each one is segmented out in a very specific different way. And as a result, we're finding out minute by minute exactly what it is that everybody likes about the difference between Watchmen and Doom Patrol and Boys and Umbrella Academy, and I feel like there's at least 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, I was just like being able to serve the content to your audience programmatically
and know how long they watch it.
That's what I mean, as opposed to like, you make a DVD sale, it's a point of sale when they have a physical object and you don't know what happens with it after that, right? But like you have, I bet you have way finer detail in the data than we even think, right? Like I bet they're tracking stuff that you would never even think of. Like maybe they paused on this specific part way more often than the other parts, I mean, stuff that goes beyond just like how long did they watch a given episode or whatever.
This is where there's a graph somewhere for each TV show on Netflix, I assure you, that shows at what point in which episode the majority of the audience fell off.
Totally. Like the data mining, like the data gold mine that these things represent is probably kind of frightening.
Well, and so that in some way the TV stuff is relatively new compared to what Facebook and Twitter and all of those sites discuss. All the sites that put a bug on every web page on the internet have been doing for a decade. Like we played a game at Maximum PC 15 years ago called, Who Knows You Better, Your Partner or Google, where we loaded up our Google pages, like our Google, what Google knows about, or what Facebook and Google know about you pages, and then like asked our partners what how we felt about specific topics as evidenced by what Facebook and Google thought about us. And it was fascinating. And like, I have a good relationship with my partner. She had no idea about most of the stuff that I was into according to Google and Facebook. I can't remember specific examples because it was a long time ago and maybe personal, but anyway.
Yes.
So yeah, but like headphones obviously fit in this. Like,
yeah, you mentioned the AirPods Max. I haven't kept up with them too much other than to hear. Do I understand that they are $500?
$550.
That sounds excessive for headphones to me.
No analog cable. You have to buy a special adapter.
What? So what do they have? Just a lightning port?
Bluetooth
or a well, they have to have some kind of connector.
Well, it has a USB-C. So you plug a USB-C cable in and it has presumably the special cable has a DAC in it. I guess that lets you use it with normal stuff.
They are almost there on USB-C, huh?
I mean, for everything
just
with the phones.
That's what I mean. Like that's the final piece, right? Like they'll probably get there in the next phone or two.
I think they're just not going to have a port in the future.
Wait, what?
I think they'll just go all MagSafe.
You have to put a wireless charger in the box at that point, don't you?
Presumably. They might for a generation or two and then stop.
Yeah. All right. So what's up with the AirPods Max?
So AirPods Max are over-the-ear headphones.
Yeah. Full headband and everything.
Full headband. They use the same, H1 chip that the AirPods and AirPods Pro use, and all the Beats headphones at this point. That makes it easy to pair and lets you switch the headphones seamlessly between like your Apple TV and your Mac and your phone and your tablet and your watch, which is actually like the main selling point for me of any Apple or Beats headphone at this point that's wireless. They come with a carrying case. So when you put them in the carrying case, it goes to sleep and it looks like a purse or a bra, depending on your perspective. and they cost $550. The battery is not user replaceable. It costs $80 to replace it out of warranty.
Boy.
And I don't understand. I do understand who this is for. It's a weird product.
I think so. Who is it for? Should I ask? Do you not want to say?
No, I'll say. So would you buy a pair of Beats headphones, Brad?
Probably not. What do those things run, like $250 or something like that?
No, they're very reasonable. They start at like $80 for earbuds and go up. No,
I thought they were. I've almost looked at their Bluetooth earbud type situation, which is pretty pricey, but I don't know.
But like, why do you think you wouldn't buy them? Is it because of the sound? Is it because of quality, or is it just a brand association?
I'm not at that price range. I might actually. I don't know. Like, it's not the name I think of when I think of headphones. I'll say that.
Would you buy Skull Candy headphones?
Definitely not. I know next to nothing about them, but just based on name alone, no.
Okay. So I think Apple owns Beats, obviously. Yes. They have a substantial grip on the market with Beats. My theory is that there is a substantial size audience that probably looks at Beats as a product for people who are younger than them and will not consider it outright.
Yes.
I'm definitely in that category.
Yes.
Partly audio snobbery and partly age.
Yeah. I mean, like, I would even add to that, like, I'm not cool enough for Beats, you know? Does it make sense?
I think you probably are, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, look, Dre uses Beats. Dre's older than both of us.
Okay. Wait, he co-founded Beats and he created Beats. He has a vested interest, or had one.
He made $1 billion selling Beats to Apple.
Yeah, he sure did.
The billionaire rapper.
Dre is the kind of cool that transcends age. I'm afraid I haven't quite gotten there yet. But
That's true. That's true. Okay, so I think that they are looking at building a product line targeted toward people like us who are not cool enough for Beats.
Okay.
That have money and are willing to spend it on stupid things like $550 headphones.
It's like a prestige item, right? Like this is probably targeted at like the Bose audience, right?
I would think so. Yeah. High end business traveler. Yes. My guess is that this ends up within the next 2 or 3 years coming down into all the way down to $100, $150-ish over the ear headphones to compete with the AirPods. Cause like they've had really good success selling AirPods as like a lifestyle. Here's a way to listen to music while you're walking around. Like Gina walks around the house with either TV or music on with her AirPods in most of the day. Often.
Oh my God, my girlfriend does the same thing. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, because like she has her hair down over her ears. I have no idea if they're in. I'm just talking to her and she's like, were you talking to me? Like, oh God, this is so annoying.
I know the feeling. So what do you think? I'm sitting here like kind of tabbing through the feature set on the AirPods Max. Like, what do you think they sacrifice as they step down in price range? Because that's the whole process of that analysis we were talking about, is like what do you have wiggle room on with consumers? What don't you? What can and can't go? What do they need more of, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, so first off, I want to clarify something. I don't have any beef with people buying really expensive headphones if they do something.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean,
these may be great. I don't know. I haven't used them.
It's your money. I will say that I have bought one $300 pair of headphones in my life that turned out to be a massive mistake. So I don't know that I will.
Having had there's a video of me listening to a pair of like $20,000 headphones at CES one year in a soundproof booth, and like I'm not in the income bracket to afford $20,000 headphones, but if I was, and I spent a lot more time listening to music than I do right now, I would probably think about it, because it was I have bad hearing and it was transcendent. In
that price range, I could see it. Let's say
it felt like listening. You know how when you listen to live music and it sounds really cool, but then like you always hear the others, like you hear people rustling around in the room and like the weird echoes off the back of the room and stuff like that. It felt like that, but perfectly mastered with no other sound. So all you were doing was being ensconced by music, and it was a really good brain feel. Like it was awesome.
Yeah, for significant 5 figures, I believe it.
But yeah, for the more than both of my cars together. Yes.
Yeah. But actually, like, this is maybe tangential to this topic or sort of related, but the headphones I got for, like, when I bought them, $300 felt like an awful lot for headphones, but I tried them. I tried them and they were super nice. And I was like, this hurts, but I'm going to treat myself. And it ended up being the build quality on them that was nowhere near up to snuff, consistent with the price range. And they're unusable now.
Oh,
and so like I don't trust products in this price range to be as good as the price implies they are. Does that make sense?
No, I think that's
like
fair.
This was a pair of Bowers and Wilkins headphones. And
was it the flat pad ones?
Maybe
the Bluetooth ones?
I want to say no, they're wired headphones. I want to say you guys tested them actually.
Yeah, Norm used those for years.
The ones I had
or over ear.
They're on ear. They're kind of smaller, but there's an adhesive that they used in them that became so like it kind of leaked out and became so gummy over time that they're like unwearable. They're disgusting. They're super sticky. Like,
did you call them?
No, I probably should. I think they were out of warranty.
I would have on that because often
yes, maybe it's well, I shouldn't say it's my fault because they shouldn't have been disgusting in the first place. But like, it just at a point I just didn't. I have enough other headphones. So I was like, whatever.
Yeah, and the whole world went buds rather than phones too.
Yeah, kind of like things started moving in a different direction. But like, you know what I mean? Though it's like I worry about there being some gotcha in a product even that expensive at this point that I'm afraid to commit that kind of money to something.
Well, so to give you a counterpoint, I bought a pair of Sennheiser HD 580s in like 2002 that I've replaced the pads, but like the cup pads and the headband pad on twice. I broke the plastic and super glued it back on once or twice now. And like, they're still great. They sound good. They work really well. I've replaced the cables a couple of times. Like if you get the right thing at that price range, you can get something that's really, really compelling. Yeah. But there is a lot of kind of weird stuff out there.
Yeah. I mean, that was part and parcel with this conversation we were having with our friend about speakers, you know?
Yeah.
Like talking about, receivers, AV receivers from they were just A receivers in the 70s. But receivers that you've had for 40 years that still sound amazing, like better than anything you can get now. Like this kind of prototypical example is that West German made radio that you've got.
The Telefunken?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a AM FM shortwave radio that my grandfather bought in like 1960 something. And he and my grandmother was English and they used it to listen to BBC World shortwave in the living room of their house in Alexandria. And I mean, maybe for others, maybe they were tuning into like Russian number stations and stuff too. But yeah, like that thing hasn't had any service ever, as far as I know, and is 50 years old and still works.
Yeah, like I think the way you put it was that it's like it's so tremendously over-engineered to be better than it needed to be.
Yeah.
And like that's not, I don't know that exists anymore, right? At least not in this kind of consumer product space. Like everything is just barely as good as it needs to be, or perhaps even like slightly worse than it should be.
So I feel like, I can't remember, one of the Steve Jobs biographies I read talked about Miele appliances at length, because like it's a German brand, I think. And his argument was that was one of the places that kind of engineering still happens.
Immer besser is their, I just looked them up, that's my terrible German accent. That's their motto.
What is it? What does it mean?
Does that mean always best or something along those lines? Always the best? Something like that.
That sounds right.
Of that nature.
Anyway. But I mean, there's a bunch of things we can talk about here in terms of how like the just barely good enough engineering ends up being a real inequality driver, because it's the classic example there is a pair of work boots, right? If you buy a pair of $300 work boots, I bought a pair of $300 boots about 10 years ago and they still look like they're brand new. I wear them all the time in the winter. They're very comfortable. They keep my foot safe, and I'll have them probably for the rest of my life at this point. But if you buy a pair of $100 work boots because you can't afford a pair of $300 work boots at any given moment in time, those are good for maybe a year.
Yeah.
Like they wear out, they get busted, the soles break off, whatever it happens to be. And as a result, the people who can afford the $300 work boots buy one pair of work boots over a 20 plus year period. Yeah. And the people who can't buy new boots every year. And
like that's one of the big facets in that's one of the big reasons that, or let me rephrase that. Like that's one of the causes of the like hidden costs of being sort of economically disadvantaged, right? It's like, it's not just in the moment, it's that over time costs increase over time because of aspects like that.
It's that you buy a new winter coat every year because the cheap coats last about 2 years, right? And instead of buying one nice coat that lasts you 10 years. Yeah. We can talk about how this, you asked a question about headphones. So I think that the industrial, like these are the Air Maxes are very big. They come with a case. The case is the first thing that goes. They get smaller and probably on ear or just barely over ear, like a vertical cup instead of a round cup, stuff like that.
You think maybe noise canceling is something that they ditch in the lower tier?
I think noise canceling is pretty vital. They maybe if they go to a real low tier, but my guess is you're looking at a more compact, less comfortable, probably less battery life.
Sure.
Maybe a physical switch instead of the on off in the case type thing that they do now.
Noise canceling is a feature that I have been surprised to see is becoming like a value add as opposed to like the focal point of the product. You know what I mean? Like 10 years ago or whatever, last time I bought noise canceling headphones, like you were buying noise canceling headphones. You know, you were not buying headphones that happens you have noise canceling in them. And like, I mean, that's cool. Like that's a good thing to see it, trickling out across the broader product line. But that's not something I expected to see.
I mean, I think it's become cheaper to implement because you have microphones on everything now.
Yes. And I'm sure the processing, the filtering, circuitry is also way cheaper and that kind of thing.
Just probably buying some Qualcomm chip off the shelf now versus Bose designing their own 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I think you see this stuff happening in phones, probably more in the Android space, but even in iOS, like there are 5 different sizes of iPhone now, from the SE through the 12 Pro, the Max, like plus all the old generations. Like there is, and then if you look at what's happening on Android, and there's folding phones, there's the Windows phone that folds, or the Android phone that Microsoft makes that folds. It's not a Windows phone because rest in peace, Windows Phone.
Gone too soon.
Yeah, but like there's phones with pop-up cameras, there's phones with flashes, there's phones with telephone. Like there's everybody's trying to figure out what especially in the Android space, what the edge is that's going to let them take over a chunk of Samsung and Google's market, and nobody seems to be finding it. So, and
like Apple is competing with that arms race, even though they're not directly in that market, right?
I feel like
they kind of are.
I would. One of the things I haven't seen in years is data on how many people actually shift back and forth between Android and iOS. Like the cost of making that shift is so high now that I wonder if we've reached a point where, like in the Android market, Google and Samsung are trying to steal market share from each other, and everybody else is trying to chip away at one of them. Because it's not like there's new smartphone customers out there other than the people who age into the market. So like I don't. If you think about Android phones, you don't see Google doing, hey, iOS users, this phone is so much better than yours anymore, because all of the stuff that is easy to explain in that kind of space doesn't apply anymore. Yeah.
It's been weird to me. I don't know if this is kind of tangential also, but the kind of broadening of some of the Apple product lines.
How so?
The muddying of, like you said, like there are how many different sizes of phone now? Like 3 minimum?
Oh yeah.
Like they've just 4.
I guess 12 and 12 Pro are the same size. It's the 12 Pro Max and the 12, the SE that are different sizes.
Wait, isn't there also a mini?
Oh yeah. 12 mini.
That's new, right? That's what I mean. Like they keep adding on more tiers and more complexity to the product. Like the post jobs offering has gotten, post jobs era has gotten so much, the offering has gotten so much, more complicated to keep up with, I guess. Like, have you ever, I've tried to source this because I swear I read it one time, and maybe it's apocryphal and I haven't been able to find it. Maybe it's in the Isaacson book. I forget.
Okay.
The story about when he came back to Apple when it was, like 90 days from bankruptcy or whatever it was. And he like went in there and basically just said on day one, like, we're flushing every product we make. And he drew like a plus sign, like a cross, and labeled the rows desktop and laptop, and then labeled the columns consumer and professional. And he was like, we are going to make 4 products. We are going to make a desktop and a laptop for consumers and for professionals. And that's all we're going to do. And like, it feels like they've gone completely almost to the other end of the spectrum. Not quite, but like they really have gone back in that direction of trying to make like all things for all people.
Well, I think that's the natural evolution of capitalism, right?
Sure. Of course.
If you like, the products will expand to fill all available niches, available segments.
Yes. And the existing products must continue to grow in market share in perpetuity, or they are worthless.
So that is the thing that I don't think is true. I think that Apple has 2 types of products in some way, right? One is the one that is the juggernaut, the iPhone, or to a lesser extent, the MacBook and the iPad and the Apple Watch and the AirPods probably count as a juggernaut at this point. The the other side of it is the products that are like the test beds and the trial balloons. And often they'll start as one and become the other, right? Like the iPhone started as that.
Well, that's the goal for everything, right? Like ideally the company wants to sell nothing but juggernauts.
And like seeing HomePod move from a $300 huge thing to a $100 desk size thing, like small thing, is an indicator that they think that market is probably ready to go a little bit more mainstream. Now, the interesting thing is they're competing with, Amazon, who gives away Alexa units for practically nothing, and Google, who, if you sign up for a data plan, like a cloud storage plan, will just send you free Nest homes. It remains to be seen how this works out for Apple in that market. But so anyway, I guess we have some more examples, but I don't think we need to get into them. I'm curious what other people think. Like, I'm looking at the Stream Deck on my desk, and that's an example because it launched with 15 buttons, and then they immediately came out with like a 6-button one, and then a 50-button, 30-button one, or whatever.
32, I think.
32, yeah, whatever the big boy is. Like this hits everyone, every product category I get. They're like Raspberry Pis.
Yeah.
There's 4 generations. You can get the 0, which has hardly any headers and no like Ethernet port. You can get at some point there'll be a Max that has 2 Ethernet ports and is basically your next pfSense router.
They came out. I mean, when the 4 launched, they said we have a 1, 2, and a 4 gigabyte model. You don't really need the 4. That's for developers. And now there's an 8. Now they've put out an 8 gigabyte model just because it's what people want, and that's where the memory supply is at. Yeah.
It's probably as cheap to make the 8 as the 1 at this point, given the memory chips that are available.
Also, they're making stuff like coax hats for that thing now, and SATA hats. Like,
can you get another Ethernet hat? Could you run pfSense on a Pi?
Maybe. I doubt. Is it going to be fast enough? I bet it's not performant enough. Well, also BSD is not great on ARM still, so I doubt. I don't think there even is an ARM pfSense right now.
Okay,
I could be wrong, but. Yeah, totally what you mean. Like, there's like elegance and simplicity and robustness in a product lines don't last, right? Like everything always gets sort of, I don't want to use the phrase dumbed down, but you know what I mean? Like commodified, I think is the right word, right? Like it becomes the thing that most people want that can be sold for the cheapest.
And it's such a weird, like, it's so weird when you see stuff that jumps outside of those silos. So we're recording this a day or two after Cyberpunk came out, and for the first time in probably a couple of years, maybe since Destiny 2 launched, I opened my Steam list last night, and almost every single person was playing Cyberpunk. Like that happened with Borderlands 2. It happened with like Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. I don't remember. It happened with PUBG for a while when PUBG was real hot at the beginning. Like it's so infrequent now that there's one title that everybody the hundreds of people that I'm friends with from the different jobs I've had in the industries I've worked in are all playing the same thing. It's really, really, it's almost shocking at this point. So
even in game development, once in a while, somebody finds that bliss point.
Yeah.
And everybody's hooked.
Yeah, there you go. And it turns out it's just, penises clipping through pants. That's what people are there for.
Cyberpunk 2077 has immaculate mouthfeel. That's really what it is.
I'm not putting my mouth anywhere near that, anywhere near Jackie. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No. I think that's a good place to wrap it up for today.
Yeah.
As always, we should thank our wonderful patrons.
Yes, please.
Everybody who supports the show, we really appreciate it. But especially, I'm clicking because I didn't open this before the start of the show.
You're looking up.
Foolish.
In this webcam. Like, I'm trying to. I mean, I have a vague idea of what your desk setup looks like. It's like trying to envision this like NASA-like setup where there are monitors hanging from the ceiling that you have to look at to.
God, that would have been so smart
to get this feed.
So I moved my top monitor up a little bit and I put the camera in between it and the bottom monitor.
Oh.
So now there's like an inch gap between the two monitors, which I thought was going to bug me, and I don't think it's going to at all.
I've thought about. You tell me. I thought about going to like a side camera setup.
So I was on a side camera setup, and the problem is when you're using that camera for conference calls, it always looks like you're side-eyeing everyone when you look at the monitors.
Sure, I can see that.
So, like, it's not ideal.
Not ideal.
Yeah. Does this feel like I'm making eye contact with you? Do you feel like we're having a personal connection right now? Because
close enough.
I'm looking at you on the screen, and
Good enough. Just like everything else we've talked about here, it's good enough.
Yeah, there we go. What I really need is a camera that's behind the screen of my monitor. That's the thing I want.
Hey, man, the second they figure that out, we get a notchless iPhone, and then I am off to the races.
God, I'm not gonna take this bait. Thank you, as always, to our executive producer, level patrons, Jacob Chappell, Andrew Cotton, David Allen, and James Kamek. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
And everybody, whether you back to Patreon, hang out in the Discord, which, by the way, per popular request, I added another channel this week.
Oh,
outdoor. It's out for outdoor conversations, outdoor thing.
Cool.
People who go outside.
Outdoorsy stuff. Yeah,
doesn't apply to me really, but one day maybe.
I threw a spoiler zone in there for Cyberpunk as well on request.
Yeah,
it's only the second one of those we've done so far. That was Last of Us, and then that. So.
I think I'm actually going to play Cyberpunk. I was kind of not thinking about it, but now everybody's playing it. I feel like I have to.
Yeah,
maybe.
I definitely, I really want to play it. I feel like maybe a few more days would be prudent. Like I just assume there are going to be a bunch of hot fixes coming for a few days.
Yeah, I'll probably do a stream. I don't know. We'll see.
Check it out this weekend, maybe.
But yeah, thanks to everybody. If you want to participate in the conversation, we have good conversations all day. We had people watching the SpaceX launch the other day live. Like it's always, it is an incredible place to waste time and hang out with wonderful nerds. And you can find out how to do that at patreon.com/techpod for as little as $2 a month. We appreciate the support. If you can't support the show financially, tell a friend.
Yeah.
Tell your nerds about us and
spread the good word, or non-nerds,
Yeah. Let us know which episodes you like. I'm curious what people think about this one. This is a kind of a concept episode.
Yeah. That again, we'll link it, but that New York Times Magazine piece is kind of a must read.
Yeah, I feel like it'll change the way it changed the way I shop at the grocery store.
It's pretty off-putting, to be perfectly honest.
I mean,
look, it's a little infuriating.
I still eat Oreos. It's hard to beat an Oreo, right?
I mean, there are straight up quotes in there to the effect of, "Hey, we're not making them eat it. We're not making them buy it." Like, it's no sense of culpability whatsoever. It's just,
it is. Look, it's telling that Philip Morris, a tobacco company, also owned the company that made. We didn't even get into the Lunchable section of that thing.
Oh my
which
God,
really
dude! I wrote it down. I wrote this down in our show notes under random thoughts. I wrote, the passage about the birth of the Lunchable almost reads like satire.
Yeah,
and it really does.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they lost money on Lunchables for the first year almost.
Well, hey, once they became part of the Kraft family and they were able to get the cheese food product at cost.
Yeah.
It increased the profitability of the Lunchable quite a bit.
Changed the dynamics of the whole. I had an uncle who used to work at who started a consulting agency that like does that kind of did the same kind of, like, not the food science part, but he would like some company came to him, Johnson Wax, I think, HC Johnson, and they were like, we have a goal that every brand in our portfolio does a 10% increase in sales, but Sterno was one of their brands, the canned heat product. And at the time, Sterno was 90% of the worldwide market in canned heat. So they're like, we need to figure out how to get market increase on Sterno, a product that is 90% of the thing. So his company went out and did the research, and they were like, oh, okay, here's what you do. Go buy this other company that operates in Africa, and you're done.
Here's that last 10% you're looking for.
Yeah, so they bought that company, and Sterno, the Sterno guys got their bonus, I guess. I don't know. Great. Anyway, this is just another way for us to thank our patrons and everybody who tells people about the show. Sure. We will be back next week with another episode. I guess that's it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Bye.